Welcome to the Blitz. Welcome to the Blitz, y'all.
In the league. Dude, shout out to Jake just for stomping Cody this week too. He's. I will still need that coffee and donut every morning though.
Good.
I'm fantastic. Well, I'm a Bears fan, so I'm not too fantastic, but you know. Yes. Yeah, I think you could be on the hot seat, but I guess that's a conversation for another episode of the Blitz Breakdown. So.
Draft picks. Both ways, I'm really happy as both a draft addict and a Dallas Cowboys fan. But then they lost. I'm miserable again, so turned out I was not happy.
I was just being told that my audio has been this whole time. So welcome to the Blitz Breakdown presented by Blitzlytics.com, where scouting meets analytics and you meet the newest crop of off-field talent. I'm Jack. That's David Connors. As you guys could hear them talking and me not talking. Thank God I still have somewhat of a producer on the back end. So we got it fixed. As we were saying, Bears are bad. Cowboys are bad. And I'm happy to see your guys' team lose. I'm happy to see your Cowboys lose because my entire family is Cowboys fans. So it makes me feel a little bit easier rooting for Tom Brady and us not winning Super Bowl. Basically, that was the extent of everything I said. It just all wrapped up, rolled into one. Hopefully we can fix that with audio. But we do have some Monday Night Football to recap, and then we are talking about Tuesday Night Football. But first, the doubleheader from last night. Bobby, you have to be excited about how your Buffalo Bills have been looking. And tell me that was not the best performance by Josh Allen at the quarterback position you have seen over the last 3 years.
Yeah, I think it was. He came out firing. He looked confident. That whole offense got rolling. And one thing I was really surprised with was the time he had in the pocket. That offense looked so crisp yesterday. It was really good to see.
Yeah, that's a stout defense too. I mean, I know they're down and they're banged up and they're missing, God knows how many players, but let's not act like that isn't a team that can't compete against, some of the better offense in the league. I mean, they smacked around the Rams. I mean, they've done some things, no offense, Rob. But
for sure.
It's not like that was a cakewalk of an offensive performance. I mean, they just had their number from if the Niners went zone, they were just picking them apart off spots. If they went man, did you see how Stephon Diggs burned Jason Verrett last night and put him on skates like not once but twice? It was bad. And all I needed was a Stephon Diggs touchdown. All I needed, but instead I got booted from two of my leagues last night. I got booted because
I could have used this Diggs touchdown as well. So
that's all I needed, man. It's just two leagues, but no. But at least we got the Blitz League. And like I was saying, when my mic wasn't working, I got a bye week this week in the Blitz Fantasy League. It looks good. I'll tell you what, my 16-team league is better than any of my 10-team league. Like, my roster on that one, I could win. I think I could win, like, any of my leagues with this one. I mean, we'll see how I do up against David in the championship this year. You know, projecting, but just saying. So, my whole thing with the Buffalo Bills is we are going to get a real test when they play. I think they still have to play the Steelers. They still have a couple more matchups, and I know the Steelers, we can jump into that segmented as well right now. But
They saw the Dolphins.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think Dolphins. Is it
Before
Dolphins,
we-
Patriots, Steelers?
Yeah,
Before we jump ahead, I just want to talk about the play of the game, of the Bills game, and that is Cole Beasley getting rocked to sleep by the offensive lineman.
that was amazing.
That was great. Cole Beasley.
And the player who chimed in saying "rock the baby," it was just fantastic.
I am
What?
mightily impressed with Cole Beasley. He has always been a hell of a football player, but this year more than ever, I feel like because they've had, you know, all these other wide receivers, he's just been this like unsung hero of that offense. And to me, I think he is easily the best slot wide receiver in the game. I mean, what he's been able to do from either, a route running position. I mean, that toe drag swag in the third quarter, that was outstanding too. I mean, he's really had
He's made a
himself
couple
year.
crazy.
What was that?
He's made a couple crazy sideline catches this year.
Yeah, he has, and he's even getting jump balls too. Like that's what I found hilarious is like is Josh Allen's even willing to throw it up and just let him go get it? Like, and he's 5'8". He's literally my size. Like Cole Beasley is
Right.
my freaking size. So thanks, Dad, for telling me I would be too small to make it in the NFL. Really appreciate that.
Cool. Cole Beasley's story was his rookie with Dallas Cowboys. He actually quit the team and left and went to come in and took a job as an investment banker. And Jason Garrett and the offensive staff actually went and talked him into coming back and giving it a go.
I never knew that.
Yeah, I had no idea on that one. That's outstanding.
It really is.
For once, thank you. Thanks, Jerry. We really appreciate that. Oh man. But yeah, what do you guys think, David? How far can the Bills take this?
I think there's a clear tier 1, and I think the AFC is very top heavy. But I think they're tier 2, like right there. And I mean, if Josh Allen plays like that, I think he can take on any team in the AFC, including the powerhouse Chiefs.
I agree. It seems like that's the one offense, the offensive line. You know, although he is under pressure a little bit last night, it wasn't to the point where we've seen over the last few years where him running for his life. But on the other side of the coin for last night, we had the Washington football team. Almost said it. Playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are now 11-1. After months of me saying that the Pittsburgh Steelers aren't as good as their record, they finally fall to a team. They have been playing sloppy ball for the last 2-3 weeks at least, if not half the season realistically, and they were bound to lose one of these games. My thought process with this is this was probably a good game for them to lose. One, it was an out-of-conference game, so they still have the 1 seed technically. I mean, it's never a good game to lose, but there's a lot of times where it's a good get-right game. And it seemed that way when you listen to Mike Tomlin talk after the game last night in the presser, that he was kind of relieved. He was, all right, now we got the monkey off our shoulder. We got a loss. I would rather have a 1-win team going to the playoffs than an undefeated team going to the playoffs. Just being realistic, I don't care about an undefeated season. Most coaches shouldn't. Most coaches shouldn't want that burden. They shouldn't want that pressure. And it's good when you know and you find out what your flaws are. And I think that's what the Steelers did. Obviously, they can't cover a running back coming out of the backfield, and it showed last night. McKissick torched them. McKissick was all over the field, coming out of the backfield, lining up in the slot. I mean, they could not. There was nothing they could do. So I think that they're showing that there are weak points. And then they had Joe Hayden go that foot back into the game last night.
I don't know.
I didn't see him in the rest of the game. I don't believe he
I
came
didn't
back.
either. That could be a huge blow to the Steelers. Steelers are already lacking in the secondary. They make up for it with the pass rush, but if you lose one or two more pieces in that back end of that defense, they're gonna be extreme. My team still could beat them. That's a different story. David, what was your takeaway from last night? Do you think that Big Ben not being able to protect the ball is going to be the downfall of this team?
No, I think the problem with the team is just simply not being able to run. Their run game has been non-existent. I mean, Big Ben you can't put it on him to win the game for you. You got to be able to give it to your running backs and grind out at the end of the game. They were up 17-3 at one point, and you just got to be able to put it or ground the ball, play some big boy football, and get to the end of the game. And they just cannot do that. There's no run game coming from Steelers offense. They are relying solely on the pass. That's, to me, is their biggest downfall. That's not going to work in playoffs, especially in Pittsburgh.
Panel, you guys got anything on this game from last night? What was your takeaway from the other side of the ball with the Washington Redskins, and specifically the comeback player of the year, Alex Smith? I'm not going to say
I think this game really shows the importance of just having a solid quarterback. Like, obviously, when Alex Smith pre-injury, he's a game manager, but I'd say, I don't know if this is even a thing, but I think he's like an elite level game manager pre-injury, where he was not going to make mistakes and he could elevate your team if he needed to. I think post-injury, he's probably not that level anymore, but he's still a solid option. And so this team with good weapons on offense, a pretty good defense. I mean, they have like 4 picks on the offensive line or defensive line. All you need is just like a reliable option back there to not turn the ball over and to make plays when you need to. And we're seeing that Alex Smith is one loss since he's taken over. The team is now 5-7. They've won 3 or 4 straight. And, he's not doing anything incredible, but he's doing enough, and he's not turning the ball over, and he's making smart decisions. And I think it just shows the value of a solid quarterback, what you can do when you have good pieces around them.
I completely agree. And I think that, like you said, Jack, it's weird to me that Pittsburgh won yesterday because the football team, has spent so much draft capital on that D line, but they're very good at pass rushing. I thought there were going to be opportunities to run the ball, and it wasn't there. And we got to talk about the receivers' drops. Big Ben put it on them a lot, and they were not catching the ball. And I think that killed them because that stopped 2 or 3 drives late in the game, and it was for the first. I mean, that has to be addressed. You have these great receivers who have been killing it all season, but that was, I think, a wake-up call for them that they got to fix.
Yeah, I also think that was very uncharacteristic for the entire wide receiving core to be dropping balls like that. Like, it became contagious. I mean, from Claypool to Deontay Johnson, James Washington, McFarland is better than I think anybody in the NFL. I know there's going to be some people that challenge me, but in terms of just pure accuracy, like that is his game. It's a little bit of athleticism, it's decision making, but it's 90% accuracy. So I think, if it wasn't for the surgence of the Giants, I mean, they're only a half game or a game behind the Giants right now. But
They're
I know
tied
that
with
the Giants have but the Giants have a tiebreaker, right? That's what it
Yes,
is?
correct. Giants beat the Washington professional football team twice.
Yeah.
Let's see what these schedules are, because I would be interested to see. It's funny how at the beginning of the season, or like coming into this year, or the second half of the year, we were talking about this NFC East being as terrible as it is. But over the last couple of weeks, the Giants have actually really got their stuff together, and so have the Washington football team. This makes me wonder, like, I want to ask you guys this. It's something I've pondered, and the words haven't come out of my mouth. But if a season was to be a year long, like if you had, say injuries weren't a concern or whatever, not that the injuries didn't exist, but just to say that like for a season was 32 games instead of 16, how many of these teams would finally start to get it right? Like towards the end of the season, like would you see an NFC East team suck all year long, but then finally catch their stride, like you kind of are starting to see them now? Like I think any of these teams have enough talent on them to win a game. We just seen it with the Washington football team beating the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers. No undefeated team has ever lost to a team with that bad of a winning percentage. And so, or like within, I think after 5-0 or something like that is the stat they threw out there last night. But do you guys think that's the case, that sooner or later, finally these teams figure it out, they hit their stride, the players finally start molding to the system, and then things click? Or do you think that just a team is good, and until they start losing players, then they're not, this is why?
Before we jump ahead to the future, I just want to also shout out Cam Sims' ridiculous one-handed catch from that game was remarkable.
Oh, God, that was nice.
But to go with what you're saying, absolutely, you're 100% on something here, Jack. I mean, the fact is the team you are at the beginning of the year on any year, it's not the team you are at the end of the year. I mean, look at, the Vikings defense is a lot more shut down than, certainly a lot better than it was early in the season. That's even with Ngakoue being traded off. The fact is if the coaching staff is good, they're going to make the team better. And when we're talking about this year, where there wasn't a preseason, there's only 7 padded practices through the entire training camp. I mean, it's behind the 8 ball, especially new coaching staffs coming into brand new systems or putting in brand new systems. So it's not surprising at all to see both Joe Judge and Ron Rivera getting much more out of their teams this point in the season than they were week 2, week 3, week 4.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how the season teeters. It literally does. Like, these top teams that started off hot, or sooner or later their candle's going to burn out, and then some of these teams that couldn't figure it out and their wheels were spinning, they finally are catching traction and hitting it at the right point. And as crazy as it sounds, and 2 weeks ago I don't think we ever would have said this. I don't know if there's a whole lot of teams that want to see the Washington football team or the New York Giants in the playoffs. I mean, I know it's Colt McCoy, but
that Giant defense is for real.
And they are, both of those defenses, both of those front fours. I mean,
like
Williams and Dexter Lawrence,
out of his mind.
Try running against that. I know they said that I'm stealing stats, but at one point, or depending on the lineup, they have a 350-pound front four. Like, good effing luck running on that if you're playing the Giants. It's just not going to happen. They have so many big boys, and not only big boys, big athletic boys that can get after the quarterback. Dexter Lawrence, one of my favorite guys to come out, especially. He had there was like a 3-headed monster back at Clemson that year, and he still was the most impressive because he's like 330 pounds, 340 pounds, and moves like he's like 230, 240. Very, very impressive. And so I would be nervous if I'm any of these teams looking at this underdog type of mentality, this Cinderella story, and watching one of these teams that's barely that's gonna be definitely at least 2 games below 500. I think. I think each of those teams maybe wins 1, maybe 2 more games at best. I'm trying to look at the schedules right now. So you've got
especially when you think that these 2 teams are going to have a home game in a cold situation where you might not be able to throw the ball. I mean, you get in New Jersey or there in Maryland there in like late December. It's cold. It's windy. That ugly football might turn out to be a win.
Yeah, especially like the Rams end up with that 5 seed. They're not good going to cold weather. That could be a trap game for them.
Probably I would probably say this too. I bet the Bucs aren't going to be a very good cold weather team. I mean, coming from Florida, I mean, I know Brady has had no problem with it being in Foxborough, but if you look at the schedule right now, these teams are probably each going to win 1 more game though, because you look at it. The Giants play the Cardinals, Browns, Ravens, Cowboys. We'll get into the Cardinals here in a second, but they are on a huge skid. Started off hot, and then again, I think that one's more so of once you have film on it, obviously injuries on the defense side of the ball, but once you have enough film on Cliff Kingsbury's offense, I think they've basically kind of boxed that offense up quite a bit and slowed it down. So I would say maybe they could beat the Cardinals this weekend. Like, I think that's still a good matchup, but it is Colt McCoy. And I don't even know. All right, this is a question. Do you guys think that the Giants are better off with Daniel Jones or Colt McCoy?
I think, honestly, at this point, Colt McCoy.
I agree.
I think Daniel Jones can do more. He's more athletic. He's younger. But, I mean, he's just such a turnover machine. And Colt McCoy, we talked about the Alex Smith, having a game manager in there. Obviously, Colt McCoy's not Alex Smith, but Colt McCoy is not going to turn the ball over.
Maybe not, but the fact is Daniel Jones has really knocked down those turnovers in the past 4 weeks before getting injured. And the thing is, when you're in playoffs, you're going to have to be able to keep up with a high-flying offense, and Colt McCoy just cannot do that. And hopefully you don't need Daniel Jones to do that, but if it comes to that, you'd much rather have Daniel Jones behind center.
I just feel like Colt McCoy with that defense and Wayne Gallman, I would give me Colt McCoy and a veteran presence at the quarterback position. I also happen to be a Longhorns fan, so just
I think Colt can see the ball if you need him to.
Yeah.
How many reps has he gotten this year, though? So I think we'll see if he plays longer than just this week. How he progresses in that offense.
Daniel Jones just turns the ball over so much. He's got 9 interceptions. And how many fumbles? Like 11 fumbles or something like that. It's seven fumbles and 9 interceptions. So he's got 16 turnovers on the season.
It's a lot, but Colt McCoy can't push the ball outside the hash marks, and that's going to be detrimental. When teams can really focus in on the center of the field, that's just going to tear apart your offense if you can't move the ball on the ground.
True.
Yeah, but I also think if the Giants are going to win a game, whether it's in the division, to win the division or win the playoffs, that's not going to be their offense anyway. That's not going to be. They have to be ball control. They have to run it. They have to short passes and then rely on their defense. I don't think when they get in the playoffs, we talked about them as the 4 seed, maybe playing the Rams. They're not going to win the game by winning a shootout against the Rams, whether it's Colt McCoy or Daniel Jones. They're going to have to rely on their defense, home field advantage, and just controlling the clock. And I don't think that Daniel Jones and a quarterback is going to all of a sudden, help them win a shootout.
I think he'll get him over that 22-point threshold. A 22-point threshold. So the average playoff team wins. The average playoff team victories or to score there's a stat that says that if you score over 22 points, you increase your odds from 37% to win a playoff game to 72% to win a playoff game. That is brought to you by our lads. No. Outsiders, football outsiders. There we go.
Shout out to Football Outsiders and the DVOA and the godfather of football analytics, Aaron Schatz, who's one of our mentors. So big shout out. But to wrap this on up before we get into some more fun, pressing topics, the Giants have the Cardinals, Browns, Ravens, Cowboys. So they can win 2 out of those 4 games. This game being the biggest one. But I know the Cardinals are on a skid, and I know the Cardinals are then gonna have to travel. But I'm sorry, I gotta take Kyler Murray over Colt McCoy, and I feel like they'll be able to get it done somehow, just because it's just the QB matchup. So I think the Washington Redskins have a chance at still winning this division. I mean, if you look at it, they have the Niners, Seahawks, Panthers, Eagles. There's a chance they can beat the Niners. There's a chance they can beat the Panthers. There's a good chance they can beat the Eagles. All they got to do is win at least 2. Is to win 2 games. I really do think they win 2 games that they're in. The Giants have to win at least 2.
Yeah, and I don't think it's out of the question they beat the Seahawks, especially as it looks like Seattle's traveling to Washington for that game.
Yeah.
We just watched Seattle lose at home to the Giants, so I don't think it's impossible to say. Seattle's kind of fallen off. It looks like if Russell Wilson's not on, that team just can't win. Other teams from you look at the Chiefs, if he's not on, they've been leaning on the run game a few games. It's just not something to have that same luxury. So I definitely think it's possible that you got 6-hour flight across the country, plus with Washington playing, they could definitely lose that game.
Yeah, all 4 of those are winnable games, and I do think that Baltimore and the Cleveland game for the Giants are guaranteed losses. I don't think that there's any chance they beat Baltimore or Cleveland. Who knows? I know, especially with the way this year's has gone. But for me personally, that's just kind of the way I see it. But we'll move on past the Monday Night Football because we literally have spent half of the episode covering just those 2. So speaking of that, some crazy NFC playoff scenarios. The question here is who will win the NFC's 7th seed? Now, if you look at it right now, you have a plethora of teams that are in the mix. Let me pull up the rankings really quick for us. But in terms of... Sorry, guys. Pulling it up right now. So as it sits right now, you have the Saints, Packers, Rams, Seahawks, Bucks. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so then right now, the Minnesota Vikings are the 7th seed. You also have the Arizona Cardinals. You have, I mean, even still, you have the Washington football team a game behind. You have the New York Giants a game behind. You have the Detroit Lions a game behind. You have the Chicago Bears a game behind. And you have the San Francisco 49ers a game behind the Minnesota Vikings for the last and final spot due to the fact that we have 7 seeds in each conference this year. Gentlemen, I will open up the floor to you guys. Who do you think takes that 7th seed? As it sits right now, it's a two-way tie. It's a tie for 6-6 with the Vikings and Cardinals sitting at 500. Do you guys think any of the teams below that could actually even be in question about moving into that 7th seed as a wild card team? And do you think that the Vikings are now they seem to be rolling defensively. They've been clicking on offense. At the complete opposite, the Cardinals have basically just done they really have done the complete opposite in terms of falling off, going from a extremely hot team, a team that we thought was going to be contending for the division. Now we don't even know, if they'll be able to make the playoffs. So do you guys think that the Cardinals can make up ground with the tiebreaker against the Vikings? Or do you guys think that the Vikings are going to continue to roll some of the weaker opponents that they've faced and earn that playoff spot? David, I will start off with you.
I think this is the Cardinals' spot to lose. I know the Vikings are in it right now, technically, but I don't think it's because the Cardinals are necessarily the best team of that bunch. I don't think it's because they're playing the best football, but I think it's just schedule-wise they have the best option. You look at the Cardinals' schedule. They have the Giants, which we just talked about, is very winnable. Eagles at home is winnable. They've already beat the Niners this year, and then they're playing the Rams week 17. The Rams at that point might have a spot locked, and they might be resting players. So I think the 7th seed is going to be a race to 9 wins, and I think the Cardinals have the best chance to 9 wins. You look at the Vikings, on the other hand, they have the Buccaneers next week in Tampa Bay. They have the Bears, which they already beat, but if the Bears can put up any sort of offense, which I know is a long shot, but the Bears could definitely give them trouble. Then they have the Saints, who could be fighting for a 1 seed at that point, and then they end with the Lions. So I really think it's between the Vikings and Cardinals. And I just think the Cardinals have the easier path schedule-wise.
It's looking like it. If you just kind of go, I think they beat the Bears. I think they beat the Lions, so they're probably finishing 8-8.
Right.
Cardinals, on the other hand, have Giants, Eagles, Niners, Rams, like you said. If they have to win, they got to go 3-1 in that. I struggle to see them doing that unless, like you said, the Rams are resting. But then again, I don't even know if the Rams will be resting because they're probably going to be fighting for some type of seeding. And who knows what happens with the Saints. Minnesota's had the Saints number, so if the Saints lose a game or two, then the Rams could actually, be pushing for that spot. So who knows how that goes. Very unlikely, but even if they do make it, are the Cardinals and Kyler Murray done? And what do you guys think the issue is, or has been with his performance over the last few weeks? Because they went from being arguably the hottest team in the league to then they took that L to Miami, and they haven't been the same. They've lost
the same since the injury. Last game he was 21 for 39 for 173. So he averaged 4.5 yards an attempt, and he ran the ball 5 times for 15 yards. But that's not his game. He shouldn't be throwing 39 times. He shouldn't only be running 5 times, especially for only 15 yards.
Yeah, I think that Kyler has definitely been a little hindered by that injury, but to me, it's coaching. I think that Cliff Kingsbury feels himself just a little too much and doesn't adapt that offense. They got figured out, and he's not changing anything. And I think that really hurts him. And I don't see it changing. I think that Kyler can be better. But even, when they played Buffalo, I noticed it. And he just has this new air about him. And I think it comes from the coaching. And I don't know. I just don't think that Kingsbury is the guy, personally. But I don't think Kyler is as big of an issue as it seems.
Yeah, I agree that the coaching has been. I think Cliff Kingsbury should have come in to the NFL as an offensive coordinator, because I think outside of the fact that he's not, like you said, he's not adjusting his offense very well, I think he also makes a lot of questionable in-game decisions.
Absolutely.
When and when not to go for it, picking field goals when it shouldn't, being ultra conservative. So I think he should have come in. I think if he'd come in as offensive coordinator first and only had the focus on being the offensive coordinator, I think we'd see him doing much better. But he's got the responsibility of the head coach and the OC, and he's calling plays. And I think that's just a little overwhelming for a first-time NFL coach.
And, I guess for me, when they hired him, it was shocking because here he's a guy who's never had a winning season.
Right. And Patrick Mahomes.
And I was just going to say, and that includes coaching Patrick Mahomes. So I didn't really understand the hiring, and I think they started out hot this year. But now that they've been figured out, you got to adapt. And I think he just, this is my offense. It's what I do. I don't need to change for anyone, is that type of opinion that they have over there. And I don't see it lasting. So we'll see. I joked the other day, actually, about Kingsbury's past year's draft. Him sitting in that living room looking like, a multi-million-dollar house, all alone, looking all cool. And then you have the most winning coach in NFL history in Bill Belichick just sitting in an old kitchen with his dog next to him, an old computer. It's like, I don't know. That to me was a bad look for Kingsbury, trying to show off a little bit too much. And I think that has carried over to the team.
David, what's your take on this?
Yeah.
All right. So we don't have any audio from you, David. I'm not getting anything, man. It might be on your end, because we're not even hearing you through the Skype call. But I do think that it's been more so the defense as much as it's been the offense. Obviously, if you look at the numbers from the winning streak to losing streak statistically, but this has had as much to do, if not more to do, with the loss of Chandler Jones, I believe. Without any form of a pass rush, that's been the biggest ordeal. If you can't get after the quarterback, it doesn't matter how good your secondary is. It doesn't matter how good Budda Baker is or how good Patrick Peterson is. And without Chandler Jones, they really have basically no pass rush whatsoever. And I mean, he's been, a defensive player of the year candidate for the last 3 straight years. A sack leader. I mean, he's somebody that that impacts the game far more than just the stats show. And it's really, really, I mean, he is the leader of that defense. So him, massive difference in my personal opinion. You able to get it fixed, David? Or are we still out? I think we are still out on the audio. I hate to do it. We're going to keep moving down the list. My big question, and I don't know the answer to this, I still am tossed up in between the two, is this division, and rightfully so. But if Baker can have a big game against the Baltimore Ravens or can have a big game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, then I will take this team seriously. Until that point, I don't know what I could really say or do. It's going to change anything. They're the Cleveland Browns. The Browns are the Browns. So I don't know, David. Please tell me we got some audio.
Hello.
Hey! Do the Cleveland Browns suck, or are they as good as their record says they are?
Well, before I jump on that, not to circle back too far, but I have to say one thing. There is no correlation to Cliff Kingsbury's living room to his coaching ability. I'm that completely. Not to rain on your parade there, Bobby, but that is like.
I get where Bobby's getting at, the persona that Cliff Kingsbury has of this, like.
Maybe, but Sean Payton has the same persona, and he's awesome. So I think it's just different strokes for different folks, my man.
Even Sean Payton, look at what happened to him the past 3 years in the playoffs.
Just
I'm okay with it.
Living room decor and like on-field performance. I'm right there with David. It's kind of a stretch there, Bobby. Kind of a stretch.
No, I don't think it affects his coaching. I just think it's the persona.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. His persona is his shit don't stink, and his offense is electric and explosive, and nobody's ever going to be able to figure it out, and that's just not the case.
Right. Exactly.
We need the analytics people at Blitzalytics to do some stats on living room decor and winning this.
I don't know. How do you quantify, like, you know, is it farmhouse? Like, where do you, like, I don't know how you put that into a metric or put that into a number.
Maybe we look at price. How much you spent on the furniture?
All right, I'm gonna circle back around and ask the same question again. Are the Browns the Browns, or are the Browns actually as good as their 9-3?
Accurate than you would think, because they are the Cleveland Browns. But you know, we'll see. Are they the Browns, or are they this good? That is the question of the year right now.
I don't think they're, I think they're good. I don't think they're, Super Bowl contenders or anything. But I also think that it just shows, again, like just the ability that a competent coach gives you. I think for years this team's had talent. Every year people are like, well, this roster is actually not that bad, but they had Hugh Jackson in there who went, 131 2 seasons in a row and then finally got fired. And then Freddie Kitchens, who, might
have been worse than Hugh Jackson.
What?
Hey.
I think Freddie Kitchens is worse than Hugh Jackson.
I agree. And even so, he still took that team to 6-10 last year, or whatever he was before he was fired. But that team still got to 6 wins last year with, Kitchens and whoever the interim was. So, this team has talent, and it's just finally someone like Stefanski who I think what's working out for him is that I think the Browns players are similar to what he had in Minnesota. You have a quarterback who is a game manager, essentially. I think Baker Mayfield's a little more bravado than Kirk Cousins, and I think he'll take a few more risks and likes to think he's not a game manager. But essentially, that's what he's done at this point. You have an elite running back in Nick Chubb. You got good weapons on offense. I think the Vikings were a little better with Thielen and Diggs, obviously, but they got good enough weapons on offense to compete, and I think they got a solid defense. And it's
that run game and their the way they keep.
I think the Browns can beat any team. I think that they're going to struggle against their own division just because their own division knows them and because there's this big brother, little brother mentality. All right. Moving on down. I'm sorry, this whole freezing up thing is really getting me. The Jets have fired defensive coordinator Greg Williams after an unforgivable 0 blitz play call to lose the game, which they did not once but twice in back-to-back plays where they let somebody get behind them in a Hail Mary situation. It is unforgivable. It is a despicable act, and it is something that Greg Williams, is notorious for in terms of being a selfish play caller. He stole a win from those young men who deserve just a little bit of victory. Like, think about being in 2020. Think of how bad it is. Think of how bad we have all had it. Think of how bad that guy looks right next to me right now, looking like Fallout Boy over there, freezing up. had to throw that out there. Rob asked me when's the rest of the Fallout Boy band gonna show up on TBB. I had to throw that out there, but you keep freezing up, so I don't even know if you're hearing this joke or not. What was I saying? I forget what I was saying. Williams, awful, despicable, deserved to get fired. But this is what I was saying. 2020 has sucked. But think about playing for the Jets in 2020. Think about how bad your life, how bad things must be. You are fully locked down in New York. You are under like the most strictest of conditions. You don't get to go out with your friends. You don't get to see family members. You didn't get to have a real Thanksgiving. And yet you still play for the goddamn Jets. And Greg Williams steals a win from you by calling the most idiotic play of all time. I don't care. Like, you could talk about the slant route and not giving the ball to Marshawn Lynch. I'm sorry. Greg Williams, that is the worst play calling I have ever seen. You had an easy path to victory. Just knock it down. Like, they don't have any jump ball guys. Like, Darren Waller is their only jump ball guy, and they left him in the block. Like, they have Ruggs and they have Nelson Aguilar, which you let him get by. Like, if Nelson Aguilar gets by you, go play prevent, because Henry Ruggs is definitely going to get by you on that next one. So, to play basically press man and let Henry Ruggs just run right on by you for that was, again, unforgivable. I feel bad for the few Jets fans that I do know. Connor Rogers and Greeny and all these guys you see from Bleacher Report to, ESPN and all this stuff. It's just, those poor bastards. That's all I got to say.
If I could say something too, to piggyback off you saying how bad this call was. I don't know if you guys saw this tweet from ESPN Stats and Info, but this call was actually historically bad. So in the past 15 seasons, there's been 252 pass plays where the team throwing the ball had 15 seconds or less, was down 4 to 8 points, and was 40-plus yards from the end zone. And this was the first time ever that the defense has sent 6+ pass rushers in the situation. So this call wasn't just bad. It wasn't just the worst call. It was historically the worst call ever.
And they didn't even run the play right, too, because they had a middle linebacker basically play a QB spy to where what he should have done is a delayed blitz or a delayed rush, so that Derek Carr couldn't step up, and he just stood there.
He froze. He absolutely froze.
Yeah, and I think too, the call is definitely 99.9% on Greg Williams, but I think we got to put 1.1% on the corner covering Ruggs. I think it was Lamar Jackson, not the quarterback, but I think it was Lamar Jackson, the DB covering him. And Ruggs does a little inside move, and the guy bites on it, and that's how Ruggs gets by him. And in that situation, they don't have timeouts. They have to go to the end zone. Don't bite on the move. Like, if the guy puts the move on, you just let him. And if he gets open underneath, that's fine. You just tackle him. Like, there's no situation where you should be biting on any sort of move that is going to let him get by you. Like, that's just, like, defensive backing 101. And I know it's probably just an instinct because he sees the move and he wants to jump the route and end the game. But at the same time, like, just let him catch it in front of you. It's okay.
I completely agree. I mean, why was Lamar Jackson one-on-one with Henry Ruggs in the first place? And you can never bite on that play. It's the last play of the game, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
you know he's not going for the corner route. Like, he's not running a 7. Like, it's a 9. It is just the 9 route. That is all he is doing. He is not coming back. He's not doing a corner route. He's not doing a dig. He's not doing a post. It is a 9 route. That is it. It is the last play of the game. David, what's your takeaway from Greg Williams? And your audio is out again. Whew, man.
Well, I just want to say one more thing, too. Full disclosure here, I am a Clemson fan, and I currently am a student at Clemson. And so when the Jets were winning this game, I was like, good, get them a win, because I want the Jaguars to get the first pick, because I don't want Trevor Lawrence going to the Jets. Like, Jaguars, I think, are a much better situation. And, of course, the Jets can't even, hold the lead with 15 seconds left, 40-plus yards from the end zone. So it looks like Trevor Lawrence is definitely going to go to the Jets. Excited about that.
Dude, I hated Eli Manning for pulling that and, not being willing to go to the first overall team or the worst team or, going to the Chargers at that time or whatever it was. But if I'm Trevor Lawrence, there's no doubt about it. There's no way I go play for the Jets. Like I will pull that crybaby whiner shit, and there's no way I'm playing for that team.
I'm not going to have any shame about it either.
Nope.
No. And like one small part of me wants Clemson to not win the national championship this year. Like 1% of me, because I figure that's the only chance that Trevor Lawrence will come back if he's like lose the national championship.
It's gonna be them versus Bama. It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel bad for Trevor Lawrence. I mean, it's gonna be so good, but so much talent wasted. And even then, the Jets are like, I've never liked Sam Darnold. If you go back to the TBBs, back when Sam Darnold was getting drafted, I called it. I didn't like him. I said he was basically Jameis Winston, all the talent in the world, can consistently turn the ball over, or can't stop turning the ball over. But still, like if you have that, you're just gonna ruin Trevor Lawrence anyways. You might as well trade back, get a king's ransom, and actually build a team. Because let's say put a team around Trevor Lawrence, the same thing will happen to Sam that's happened to Sam Darnold, and the same thing will happen to every other quarterback that's been destroyed and wasted. In terms of you're ruining a quarterback by putting him in a talentless offense, and that's exactly what it is. Maybe it'll get better. Maybe they'll grab a decent coach, and that's going to be the biggest thing is if they have the first pick, then there's going to be a coach that wants Trevor Lawrence as their quarterback.
Right. They could get someone like Eric Bieniemy maybe, or maybe like Joe Brady. Like he's been doing a good job. I don't know if he's going to be until his first year, so I don't know if he's going to be on the short list for head coaching jobs. But he's been doing a solid job in Carolina, so I could see him getting some looks.
Yeah, there's quite a few guys, but I think Bieniemy's got to be the guy. I feel like he's going to be a perfect fit for Houston. Just basically you're going from Patrick Mahomes to Deshaun Watson. Like it just makes a ton of sense. But I heard that's that's likely not gonna be a destination, and that they've already kind of kicked the tires on Bieniemy and they weren't really interested, or that there's something with that franchise from what I heard or what I read. But anyways, Greg Williams got fired. I think Gay should have been fired a long time ago. My one question though, guys, is do you think that was tanking at its finest?
It's funny you say that because Jordy Nelson actually he was on a Twitch stream with some guys who do a podcast at CBS Sports, and he said you only make that play call if you're tanking the season. Jordy Nelson, exact words. So
I feel like this happened. Here's some money under the table. There you go, Greg Williams, and you're fired. That's exactly what happened. Hey, I'm gonna need you to F this up for us, so we can still get that number on overall pick. I'm gonna fire you, but I'm gonna slide about an extra $1 million under the table. Just pull that off that Swiss bank account open for me, and we'll make that happen. In other news, we're gonna keep moving down the list before we wrap this on up. We only got a few minutes left. The New England Patriots took it to the LA Chargers. I could not believe it. I was blown away. You know why I was blown away? Because I didn't start the Patriots defense in a few of these in like one or two of my leagues. I had Justin Herbert in. I lost by like 3 points. All Justin Herbert had to do was just score just a few more points than 2. It was all bad. But I could not believe the Patriots defense took it to them, knowing damn well better that the Patriots have an outstanding record. I think it's like, 30-5 all-time or something like that against rookie quarterbacks. So I should have seen it coming. I took the Chargers in the Pick'em League because I figured that finally they were going to get a win. There's no way that this high-powered offense, with Justin Herbert slinging the ball and throwing it downfield, that there's no way that this slow motion, or, mundane, sluggish, run it down their throat, old school offensive approach was going to be able to put up enough points against Justin Herbert to get it done, and goddamn was I wrong. What was it, 45-0? Is that what it ended up being?
Yeah.
Something big to 0.
The ass whooping of the season, and it wasn't even close. I mean, that to me was just, was it 45, or is that?
I wasn't able to watch the game, but did anyone see how Herbert played?
I feel like the Chargers offense, Obviously, it's got a ton of weapons. It's got a ton of opportunity to look good. But they've done a lot to make these throws easy on him. They've done a lot to make, some not necessarily gadget, but misdirection plays that are one or two reads, some kind of easier plays to diagnose a defense, because I think that's going to be his biggest thing. It's not can he make the throws, it's can he diagnose the defense, and when they catch on this next year, I have a feeling Anthony Lynn's going to get fired, so it'll probably be a whole new offense. But when they figure out what he does best and they figure out how to slow it down or if not stop it, I think we're going to get the real Justin Herbert. And I just don't think – I think Justin Herbert could have an outstanding career, but I feel like we might have seen him peak already. And it scares me a little bit, and I think that's kind of talking some trash, and I'm not trying to be too negative on the guy. He is very good, and I don't just want to be right as a scout, but the decision-making has not been there. My question to you guys is, with this approach and the Patriots being very far down the totem pole of the wild card seeding, is there any chance that this offense with basically zero passing attack could try to make a playoff run at the final 4 weeks, the last quarter of the season?
People's throat. Their defense is playing better. We talked about earlier in the podcast here that these teams had no offseason, they had no preseason, they had nothing really. And so we talked about how these teams are starting to hit their stride. And I think the Patriots are one of those teams. They're missing how many defensive starters due to opting out because of COVID. And I think these guys just needed some time to get used to the Bill Belichick way, the Patriot way. And now it's starting to all come together. And I really wouldn't be surprised if this team got to 10-6 and got a playoffs, whatever the seed that would be, 6 or 7 seed. And I do think it's sustainable, especially because I think Cam Newton pre-getting COVID looked pretty good. And then he looked kind of rusty post-COVID. And I think he's kind of starting to hit his stride a little more. And, he's not Tom Brady throwing the ball, but I think he's good enough throwing the ball that they can definitely win some games.
I think you definitely have to throw for more 100 yards a game before I could say he's got the dust off or the rust off. But what I would say is that poor Cam Newton. There is nobody on that. I mean, that has got to be the least talented wide receiver pass catching group in the NFL right now. I can't think of another one that's worse off.
And
go for it.
I think that. Oh, sorry.
Go for it, Bobby.
Oh, sorry. I think that you, like Steven said, you never check Bill Belichick out. You can never count him out. But when it comes down to playoffs, if they get in, I don't think they can beat one of the top-tier teams. I just think they're, like you said, Jack, their receiving core is as bad as...
5, you have, as of right now, barring, maybe Dallas pulls out a win tonight. You never know. I'm sure David Connors would appreciate that. If they, depending on how that goes. Nope. Are you back? Can we hear you?
Yeah, we're here. I had.
All right. Well, what we were getting at is the New England Patriots not making the playoffs, which I find it going to be extremely hard because they have not one, not two, but 3 teams in front of them. So either the Dolphins, Colts, Titans, Raiders, or Ravens would all have to fall off, and so they are 2 games behind anybody sitting in the wild card spot right now. And although I do think you could see the Titans, especially after this last week, they kind of seem to have fallen apart, imploded. But then you look at their schedule, Jaguars, Lions, Green Bay, Texans. I know for sure they're going to win at least 2 of those games. So that means that yeah, I think New England have to run shop and run table the entire way through. I don't see it happening. You've got to be able to put up more than 100 yards passing. Like, if I'm mistaken, I'll be very impressed, but I just don't see them winning the way they have been as of late.
Well, I think the good news for the Patriots is, of those teams ahead of them, they play Miami again, so that's helpful. They already have a tiebreaker over the Raiders and the Ravens. So if they can get to 9 wins, I don't know if those teams are going to get better than 9 wins. Maybe Miami will, but I don't know if Las Vegas or Baltimore are going to do better than 9 wins at this point. I don't think they've looked very good lately. And so having the tiebreaker is going to be huge. And so really, I think honestly, it's going to come down to how well Tua plays down the stretch. Because I think that's going to be the big one. That's the team they're chasing. Because I think they're going to end up ahead of Las Vegas and Baltimore, especially with that tiebreaker. So it's really going to come down to can Tua compile enough wins, especially when they play New England, to get that 7 seed. And I believe Miami still has Buffalo too, if I'm not mistaken.
Week 17.
There you go, week 17. So they got to play New England and Buffalo. Buffalo, we just talked about being a top 3 team in the AFC, and New England, we talked about having rookie quarterback numbers. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to be close, and it's going to come down to, can Cam Newton or can the Patriots sustain this run-heavy offense where they're throwing for less than 100 yards?
All right, let's turn it back over to David to wrap up this show for us with 2 segments pertaining to the NFC East. There has been all these talks over the years about Carson Wentz being a better quarterback than Dak Prescott. I've been on that train. I think a majority of people have been on that train from a talent standpoint, from a throwing of the football standpoint. Carson Wentz has clearly been a better quarterback than Dak Prescott. That is no longer the case, and even though Dak Prescott isn't even playing right now, Carson Wentz is playing so bad, so horrendous. He is holding onto the ball for over 4 seconds to throw. I think it's 4.16 seconds to throw. It is awful. He can't read a defense. He looks uncomfortable. My question to you, Dave,
that you can afford, you can start the team. Now going forward, I think Wentz is the starter. And the difference being is, I think Wentz is a better thrower of the football. You said it. Wentz can make throws that maybe only 7 other quarterbacks in the NFL can make. It's clearly all just in his head. And I think that he can get through it with a decent offseason to figure out what's going on. Because even last year he dragged the Eagles into playoffs last year. If we don't remember, like, he was playing with Greg Ward and Boston Scott, his 2 best targets, and just dragged them into playoffs. So, I mean, it's all there for Wentz. It's just getting back to doing. But for this year, I think you need to cut. I think you need to just go put him on the bench and just let see Hurts get, because it's not getting better. You've tried everything. The coaching staff's tried everything they can with him. They just got to see what they've got in the other player and just throw something else out there. Because quite frankly, you're going to lose the entire locker room throwing Wentz out there, just throwing him, just playing like this. It's basically saying we give up.
I agree. I think you see mental weakness from Carson Wentz. I think mentally he's just not there. I think physically he is that same quarterback. I think mentally he is shot. He is spent, and it kind of worries me because this doesn't seem like it's his team. I mean, a different quarterback won the Super Bowl with his team, making it not his team that year. And then Nick Foles just looked like a better quarterback in this system than Carson Wentz ever did during that playoff stretch. Jalen Hurts comes in and instantly sparks that offense. Instantly makes a beautiful throw down the sidelines. There's something that's a morale boost or whatever it is, but this team does not have confidence with him on the field. And I would be very, very worried moving forward with the Eagles in the next couple of years, because they're tied to him and they're tied to this contract no matter what. So you might as well have him on the roster. But I think going into next season, you better expect an open QB competition, and they're not going to be babying or pampering his ego any longer. It's either going to be shit or get off the pot. One of the two. If you can't keep up and you can't outthrow Jalen Hurts, who again is outstanding person, hell of a leader, and that's what sucks is he will take the locker room from Carson Wentz. I'm pretty sure he already has.
I wonder if Ballard and Reich from the Colts are watching this situation thinking, Reich made Wentz a MVP candidate back that season they won the Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
I wonder if Reich's watching this situation going, come on, a couple more years, I'm getting you for nothing.
Well, even then, I mean, they could probably if you're willing to trade for that contract, you're probably getting them for nothing.
And Colts have a nice cap space.
Oh, yeah, you could turn around and give all that. I mean, you're basically would just be giving the money you're already giving Phillip Rivers and just transferring it over. I mean, they're paying two quarterbacks good starting quarterback money, basically. Neither one of those quarterbacks is likely going to be on the roster next year unless Phillip Rivers wants them and they make a good push with Rivers. But I haven't been impressed with anything I've seen from Phillip Rivers so far. Let's end this on our Tuesday night TNF, which is Thursday night football, but on Tuesday night football, your Dallas Cowboys, somebody else's, I don't know who. We don't even have a Baltimore Ravens fan now that I think of it. I don't think I've ever even met a Ravens fan. I know they exist, but I've never seen them. I don't know one. So I was just like trying to put one in my head. And I'm like, we've had we've had close to 100 people work for Blitz, and not one of them has been a damn Ravens fan. Somebody's Ravens. Lamar Jackson finally coming back from the COVID list. What is your take, David? Do you think that the Ravens haven't looked good? Like, that defense banged up. They're down quite a bit of people. Do you think your Cowboys have a chance this week?
Well, I'll say this about that. I knew a few Ravens fans because I actually grew up in the Beltway, right between Baltimore and D.C. So I knew a couple growing up, but I don't keep up with them because they're Ravens fans. Anyways, yeah, I don't think the Dallas Cowboys have a chance. I think the pass rush from Baltimore is going to stomp the Dallas Cowboys offensive line, which is completely depleted of any starters whatsoever, with the exception of Connor Williams, who, let's face it, was the weak point, but we had starters.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think there's any way that we can hold the pass rush down. The secondary to the Baltimore is going to keep the really good Cowboys receivers undercover long enough for them to give Andy Dalton a lot of trouble. Andy Dalton's not great under stress. I don't see this going well. I imagine this being a slow, boring, not fun to watch game that ends in a score of like 17-6.
Awesome.
I can see that.
That sounds like a fun game to watch tonight. Guys, before we wrap this up, what's your takeaway on this list?
Rosen got the Dolphins a second.
Huh?
I said Rosen got the Cardinals a second.
Yeah, but he was a first-round pick the year before.
Yeah, you also the Colts have to take that contract, which is why they're going to be giving him.
That's what
true.
I'm saying. Yeah, it's the contract is a big deal. I mean, that's
Good point.
56 million over the next 2 years. I think is what it is. Yeah. Good luck getting out of that contract. I mean, it could maybe be like a second or a third round pick if they're willing to eat part of that cap, but I don't think anybody's giving like maybe a 4 and a 5.
The contract, they're in contract hell next offseason. They are the worst contract situation next offseason.
Oh, who, the Eagles?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Next
Eagles and Saints are millions of dollars over the cap. Both of them.
I think the Saints are projected to be $100 million over the cap, which is just sounds unbelievable.
Are going to be even more.
And that's where the Bucks just slide on in, baby. Playing for next year already, but we can still get hot. But yeah, I got Lamar Jackson having a nice kind of resurgence game against that weak secondary, even with his lack of accuracy or any form of. But I think it should be still a fun game. We'll see. It might be a slop fest. You might have like I'm gonna say there's probably gonna be like a Marcus Peters pick six. I'm gonna go throw that one out there. If y'all got anything for a hot take, say it now. Forever, if not, speak your piece. Let these people know where they can find you.
Do you think they're the wide receiver, any wide receiver two, like any team's second wide receiver, that is worse than the best wide receiver on the Patriots?
I don't.
I was thinking about it. I was like, I bet they would take any team number two over anyone they have in their locker room at this point.
Absolutely.
Maybe the Lions.
Sure.
I don't know. Lions got Galladay and Marvin Jones. I mean,
Quintez Cephas would for sure be their number one wide receiver right now.
Anthony Miller.
That's their number 3. There's like their number 4 or 5. Like, and Quintez Cephas for sure. Like, they couldn't draft nobody. Like, think of all the outstanding wide receivers that came out of this draft class this year alone. They didn't try to go get one of them.
No. I could see Baltimore main receiver being just as bad as a Patriot receiver.
Yeah.
Who are we calling their second? Who are we calling their first receiver? Is it Dez?
You know what? Touche on that. Who is their first receiver?
So, I mean, you have Dez, Hollywood, Miles Boykin, Devin Duvernay. All those.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess those guys are probably all better than what New England has.
Yeah,
Maybe.
they would gladly have Devin Duvernay right now be there. I mean, I guarantee you, Duvernay.
That's sad.
I can't think of a number 2 wide receiver that would not be their number 1.
Maybe the Eagles.
No, they take Jalen Reagor in a heartbeat.
Yeah, Jalen Reagor, Jeffrey. I mean, Jeffrey's all banged up.
Well, Jeffrey's been injured and terrible when he's playing. But
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, I guess Fulgham has seemed like a flash in the pan. I guess it could be on Wednesday too.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, no.
Is there another team? I can't think of. That's the only team. I think the Eagles have the. Apologize for the technical difficulties. This is becoming way too much of a regular thing. Don't apologize if it's for me. So I appreciate you guys tuning in and putting up with our crap.